Hello everybody. I'm going to have a little witter in a minute. But first of all, I want to tell you about exciting things. Well, we hope they're exciting for us anyway. Just come back from the Malvern show. Was great fun. I love Malvern shows. I like the smaller quilt shows. Yeah, so much nicer, friendlier. Yeah, so we had loads of you on classes. Fabulous. In fact, we were over for a couple of times. Thank you very much. Saw loads of you in and around the show, buy-in and all the rest of it, and had lots of catch-ups and natters and what's going on and how are you and all that sort of stuff, which was fabulous. Thank you very much. And also on Saturday we did a live. I say we, Julia from Crosspatch. Those of you that know Crosspatch, Julia does fabulous stitcheries and things. You'll have seen her on Create and Craft a lot. And Andy from Crafty-UK, who makes all the templates and stuff for us. Also Create and Craft, and once upon a time me, but not any longer. But not any of us any longer, because I don't believe they're going any longer. Don't know what the story is then, nobody's really heard anything. But they seem to be defunct. So the three of us are going to get together and we're going to do our own thing. And we started it on Saturday, where all three of us went charging around the show with our, here we go, let's have a little look at this thing like I normally do, but all three of us at the same time. So we were actually live to 3 different channels, as it were, so 3 different groups or Facebooks or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to do more of this. We're going to make a group up. It's going to be in the next week or so. We're going to do it pretty quickly. I'm not sure the name yet. We're all having lots of words about what we're going to call ourselves. I called us, just for quickness, the Collective on Saturday. That was quite funny, I thought. But there we go. So we're going to do videos. We're going to do lives whenever we can, if we can get together. We're going to try and work out how we can do something at the same time from different ends of the country. Andy's in Norfolk, Julia's in Wales, and I'm in Cornwall. So, it's, you know, we couldn't be down the road from each other. It's not happening, is it? So we're going to do what we can to get together as often as we can. The shows, obviously, but we're going to promote each other's stuff because we do very different, and we don't conflict, we don't argue, we get on really well, we have a giggle, more to the point. Life's too stuffy, we need to have a bit of a laugh, I feel. So anyway, you can ask any one of us about the other one and we can point you in the direction if you're looking for something. But we're going to have this group and we're going to do what we can to keep that all going. We're going to put in videos and lives and special offers and all that sort of stuff. You'll see us out and about at shows wherever we can get together, even if it be 1 or 2 of us at the same time or 3 of us. We might even do a little road trip. We're open to suggestions. If anybody wants us to come and do classes at the same time as Andy's maybe doing his shop, and I could maybe do a talk, or we all do different things, but we could come as a threesome, you never know. All right, so keep an eye out. We've got all sorts of things in mind now, whether or not and how quick, but we've got lots to come. All right, so please spread the word. Part of the reason for doing this, obviously the TV's gone, we can offer you things at a far better price than they ever could. And yeah, why should you be paying through the nose when you don't have to? That's my sort of thing. So that's our very big news, and do keep an eye, sorry. And as soon as it's out, please spread the word, is what I was trying to say. I'm getting myself all excited and muddled up and everything. So once it's there, just spread it as far as you can. And you'll be helping 3 small businesses survive, which would be fabulous. Right, so that's that. Second bit of news, obviously I'm going to do a witter today, or I am doing a witter. Things have been very, for here. Paul, my husband, has been off work for 2 years. He's back to work. He had his open heart earlier in the year, open heart op, and he's now recovered and he's back to work, which is fabulous. I then tipped the balance and did all sorts of stupid things, but they've now got me under control, apparently. But there we go. So yeah, so all of my issues are now in control. I'm not going to say they're ever going to go away, but they're as good as they're ever going to get. So that's a good thing too. But that's we've been a bit preoccupied, it has to be said, here in Cornwall this year. So now I'm up and running and I'm back again as such. Okay, so open to suggestions. Got retreats and things coming up, got several classes coming up, shows, all sorts of stuff, and obviously this thing with Andy and Julia. So I can't wait for that. I think we're gonna have such a laugh. And don't expect anything serious from me, because I try, it doesn't happen, does it? Right, here we go. Block 5 of the Witter Quilt. Now, I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs, but I'm going to talk triangles again, all right? There's a few people recently had issues with triangles, and I thought, do you know what? We'll revisit. We'll go through it, and I'll show you how I do it, or tell you how I do it. Everybody does things differently, and you find your own way of working. So all I'm doing is showing you how I would tackle a problem, or what I would do, okay? You work in the way that works for you, the manner that works for you. We all work differently, and there's nothing wrong with that, all right? There's no rights or wrongs, it's whatever suits you. So the block we're doing is this one here. I don't know if you can see that well enough there, so she's peeking around the camera. This one generally, I think, do they call it playing cards or something? There's usually 4 different fabrics, I think. And I changed it. I put a little fussy cut in the middle, and I've bordered it. Just make it a little bit different, really, and give us a reason for doing. So in the centre, I've actually fussy cut a little piece of it's a hummingbird. It's Macao fabric, so a hummingbird. Now that leads us perfectly onto the main thing: triangles go wrong. All right, the main reason why triangles go wrong. You've got a bias cut on them, yeah? So you've got your nice squarey, and then you've got, and if you handle it too much, it just opens up. And then it really doesn't play, okay? So I'm just talking half square triangles today. The same rule of thumb goes with any other angle, but half square triangles is the easiest to keep straight, and the angles and all the rest of it. So that's what we're doing on this one. Now, prep your fabric properly. I can't believe I'm saying that, because I'm a bugger for it. Give it an iron. Give it your starch or your best press or whatever it is that you want and you want to use. But what you want is your fabric nice before you cut, so that actually you're not pulling it around to get a crease out, or you're handling things. You do not want to handle triangles, only as little as you can, yeah? So prep your fabric, iron it, or whatever you need to do. Then, if you're doing by hand, I may well make templates. And then I would be very careful to mark corners. Always get your corners really, really well if you're doing by hand. And then mark your sewing lines around your template. Cut it, add your seam allowance, pins in the corner, pin it on the line, stitch, 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 job done. All right. Gently, always, no pulling. Right, so if you're doing by machine like I've done today, how do we do half square triangles, or how do I do half square triangles? You could template it if you want, but I wanted to rotary cut. So you have to bear in mind what's the easiest way. So I quite liked, I've cut squares that I can cut diagonally in half for my half square triangle. Do not fall into the trap of, I need 4.5 inch square to go in my 9 patch, yeah? Therefore, I'm going to cut 4.5 inches and chop it diagonally, because it's going to be too small, because you'll have forgotten the seam allowance in the middle. I was trying to do it that I could show you, but these fabrics probably aren't the best. You need a seam allowance here where you're going to rejoin them, so you need to allow for that, all right? So you can get all of these lovely tables online, all the rest of it, for this size cut, 3 17/18 or 7/8, or I can't be doing it. I just can't be doing it. I'm sorry, it's just too faffy. So with your cutting, it just makes life awkward. What size do I want my square finished? All right, so actually I'm actually after a 4-inch finish. Okay, so this has got its seam allowance on, so it's 4.5. I want a 4-inch finish So if I'm going to cut a square and chop it in half, just add an inch. I'm going to cut a 5-inch square, cut it diagonally, join me 2 other bits together as it were, and I've got a square that's probably a little bit too big. Excuse me, I just have an inch going on here. And then I trim it. So much simpler. I wouldn't repress because that's me. I will fold it over and I finger press from a nail. I tend to do that. Be careful not to stretch it. And then I will trim. All right, let me move that off my shelf. Right, we've all got rulers. On our rulers, I'm going to put that white bit on there so hopefully you can see. We have diagonal lines, all right? So we're looking at a 45-degree angle here. Okay, so what we want to do is I want that at 4.5. It's actually, let me see, it's probably about 4 3/4 actually, and it's a little bit bowed and a little bit all over the place. So I'll get my 45-degree angle. I put my 45-degree angle on my 45-degree seam. That needs to be on there, all right? So that's your main first to keep everything accurate, your points accurate, that they're going to join your 45-degree angle. Never be afraid of these rulers, they're fine. Just practice if necessary, get some rubbish and have a go. Now, I know I need this to be 4.5, all right? So I need my centre of my block. What's it going to be? So it's going to be 2 1/4, yeah? So I then look, okay, 1 2 2 1/4 down, 1 2 2 1/4 in, and I get my middle spot of what's going to be my square. And I make sure that this diagonal cuts through that point, all right? And then anything that is odd can be chopped off. Then you turn it around, and then that will go 4.5, nicely square then, 4.5 by 4.5, and that should be good. But before you cut, always make sure that diagonal is still on its diagonal, and then chop. Job's done. Then you've got 4.5-inch square that you can put with all your other 4.5-inch squares and make your block. So this one is, because I can't remember quite what my reasoning was. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of my videos why I'm doing 2 colorways for the same quilt. I'm making 2 quilts. I can't remember why. It might have been because I was going to give it to the home. Mother passed away earlier this year, so the local home where she was, she was only ever in there for a week, bless her, she didn't last long in there. A lot of the ladies that come here into the therapy cupboard, and friends and people that I know, have been donating quilts, and we've been taking them down to the residential home and filling the whole place with colour. I'm going on a side here that's absolutely nothing that you need to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The very first day that my mum went into this home, I went down to meet her and, well, see her, see how she is, and I went into her room and she had a patchwork quilt on her bed, it was lovely, a very traditional one. It had been washed hundreds of times. It was so well worn and so soft. It was just gorgeous, and I thought, I've got to make a load more now. So I think we're on something like, we've donated 22 quilts or something like that, and I'm pretty sure that at the time in my mind, this is where they are going to be destined, which is probably where they'll end up anyway, if I've changed my mind or whatever. So total aside, let's just carry on from that. I was talking about my pattern here. So you've got half squares, half squares. This one, the side squares, it's a half square and 2 quarter squares, for want of a better word. Now, if you imagine that this one and this one, they're the same, but if you turn them, they become a square, yeah? So, what size is that square that you need finished? Add an inch, cut it in half, rejoin, trim. All right, so I've put on here, I think I've worked it out, we need a 4-inch square that we need to chop in half to get our little ones, all right? So I've chopped them in half, but obviously then I've added them in a different manner, so they're not on yet. You can see a white bit down there because I was out on the edge of the fabric, and I'm like, oh, I don't want that piece of red in it. So I cut it that cream is going to go into the seam allowance. We won't see it, so that's why it's looking a bit odd. All right, so we've got the 2 little ones put together, and again the same rule goes. You have to be very careful with these because you've got a bias cut there and a bias cut there, so there's 2 bias cuts going on. No, I'm talking rubbish. There's a bias cut there and there, 2 bias cuts that need to be careful. So I'm going to put this to a big one. Now because this isn't accurate, that's fine, we're going to trim it, and that one's probably a little big too, but we're going to trim it. I want to join them first. So what I do, I'm just going to lay that one on top of that one. Okay, so one is definitely bigger than the other. All right, so make sure that the smaller one is central. All right, then you can join that, no problem. So join that one, doobie doobie doo, finger press it and do the same cut. All right, but you've got 2 diagonals that you can actually be really straight on, and actually this bit becomes a center spot. So where I was saying it needs to be 2 1/4, that join should be 2 1/4. That's giving you the center of your square. All right, and then you trim it, and then you put it all together, and then you have a nice lovely block finished. All right, so there we go. I just need to finish this little one off now, and then that's done. So I do apologise that, you know, life's happened and I didn't get the Witter Quilts done. I hope I've not bored you with stuff and a repeat of triangles, but triangles can be a nightmare, as a lot of us know. So the same rule of thumb goes with any triangle with the angles. All right, prep your fabric, cut it accurately, don't handle it, don't stretch it. All right, if you handle it and you think, oh god, that's a bit wibbly, and you've put it together and you've got a big wobble going on, and it's just too, undo it, recut it, rejoin it. Don't look at it and think, oh, I can bodge that and pull that in. You're not going to do it. Your bit of fabric's going to be stretched and too big. So just bite the bullet, undo it there and then, redo it. All right, so yeah, it's one of those things. If you want it to look lovely, you've got to behave. All right, so she. But yeah, it goes with any of them. Just anything with a bias cut, just handle carefully. Don't want to overdo it. So I've done a sheet, which looks like I need to put some. I might have to go over it with a marker pen, and I'll take a photo. And I've taken some photos while I've been doing, and I'll put them in Patchwork Wittering group for everybody. All right, up in the photos in albums, I think I've been putting them. So it's got your measurements and things on. Any questions, as ever, just shout me, message me, write it in the comments politely, whatever you want. All right, and I will shout and give you a bit more help. Okay, so there we go. That's our next witter block done at last. Sorry I've been wittering. I have been wittering, but I've had such fun, and it's going to be so exciting for, well, I am so excited for what's to come. We're going to have our own little TV thing going on, in effect, really, and it's not going to be stuffy. Sorry, can't do this prim and proper stuffy thing. It doesn't happen. We are what we are, and that's not me, is it? So please spread the word when that happens. Just one thing really to say, as I would always say, be lovely.